Hi, folks. Happy Tuesday. Today we have on our podcast Abhilash, right? So, all my listeners are probably aware we talk a lot about Bitcoin on this show, but I think today's focus is going to be slightly different. We're going to focus on why a country full of gold lovers, India, right? How come they don't seemingly get Bitcoin? Why is that? Abhilash has his take on this. And also he has his take on what Indian Bitcoiners are up to. So, look, I'm not going to steal his thunder, so I'll let Abhilash talk to you about himself. So, go on, Abhilash, stage is yours.
So, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the listeners of Embracing Discomfort. Fantastic name, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Something that we Bitcoiners are proud of, but at the same time rebel against, right? So
Yeah.
there is that duality there. You capture it beautifully. So props to you for that. Uh,
Thank
a very quick TLDR introduction about myself. I'm based in India. I am Indian. I am working in the Bitcoin ecosystem since the past 4 odd years now, and predominantly I work on two IPs, you could call, for the lack of a better word, although I wouldn't want to put it that way. So one is this beautiful community that we've been able to create over here in India called Bitcoin for India, and so we'll speak about that. So that is one of the projects that I work on. I contribute to. Another one is called Bitcoin Keeper, which is a comprehensive key management solution. It is a multi-sig app. You can call it a coordinator app. So these are my concerns when it comes to what do I do with majority of my professional and personal time in the
Yeah.
Bitcoin ecosystem.
Nice. No, very cool. Okay, so you have a nice mix of both the technical aspects as well as the, let's say, the economic aspects of Bitcoin, and of course the cultural aspects, right? Which is what I'm really gonna kind of try and understand. So, why don't why do Indians love gold? Tell me that first.
Because we are taught that, and we are taught that because people, some very wise sagacious people, understood that it is a precious metal. They
Mm,
understood its scarcity, and very nicely, like, see what sticks in culture, right? What sticks in generally, what people who have initiated cultures made sure that they snuck in good habits, good
mm,
good practices via stories, via traditions, via things that is expected of someone who wants to be considered a good follower of the culture, right?
mm, mm.
So gold and gold hodling has been part of Indian culture from time immemorial, right?
Right. Yeah.
So initially, for sure, people would have questioned why the need, why the pursuit. Over time, it starts becoming tradition. Over time,
Mm,
tradition starts becoming culture. Over time,
mm.
we stop questioning things, for better or for worse. There are pros and cons for for both of them, right?
Yeah.
And tradition and culture starts becoming part of lore, starts becoming part of festivities, start becoming part of a way of life, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you've reached a way of life point, then, and by that time, by that time, you start seeing both the pros and cons of things that have started becoming tradition. So the good
Mm,
things you continue, the things that aren't contributing to you as an individual or to you as a society, you start questioning, and you try to change
mm.
that. Gold,
Yeah.
people understand, is a great bedrock for life in general, right?
Right.
So far,
Mm,
right?
mm,
As
mm.
Bitcoiners, we got to say that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So
people.
that's interesting because I think gold is like interwoven into pretty much every single Indian ritual or
Yes,
custom or kind
yes,
of like you said tradition, right? So I wonder on a
and
deeper
not the
level,
not the ETFs, hard gold.
exactly, yeah, yeah, not the fake or not the fiat
Yeah,
certificates, right?
not paper gold. Yes,
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe on a very almost like a subconscious level, Indians actually understand hard money or maybe are kind of wired to get hard money. So why why is Bitcoin, which I think surpasses gold in pretty much every property, how come Indians don't necessarily get it? What's missing in our storytelling for them to why are
Uh,
they not making that leap?
I have my theories about it, which I'm happy to share. One is the crypto fund for sure, right? Uh, the other thing is Bitcoin is slightly long term, and I don't use that word slightly, very lightly.
Yeah.
We know it's a long term game. Us Bitcoiners, we are doing it for the next generation. We are not
Mm,
in it for quick turnarounds or to make a quick buck, right? We know that we need to see at least a couple cycles, and we need to there are several good practices that we need to know that, okay, take Bitcoin in in your own custody, take care of
yeah.
your keys, make sure that your wallets are backed up, etc., 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 right? So there is one, the crypto fund. There is a steep learning curve. Okay, it is not steep in hindsight, but us as Bitcoiners, it is good that we consider it as steep, so then we'll take that learning curve a little more seriously when we are teaching someone, right? So there
Mm,
is definitely a learning curve that is involved. Apart from that, because of the fiat mindset that we have as human beings, because we don't know better, we want quick turnarounds, and we want quick turnarounds so that that money could be used to enhance the way of living, etc. There is societal pressure, there are pressures of loans, there are pressures of your own
yeah.
ambitions, and we are in that perennial rat race, right? And inflation doesn't help. So what do I do with the best knowledge that I have at a point in time, which is being diluted by propaganda and what governments tell me and what religion tells me and what I'm seeing with my friends, uh, and the marketing bombardment that is the crypto ecosystem, right? What do I
Mm,
do with the best knowledge that I have? Probably not Bitcoin, unfortunately, right? So then
right.
I look at gold, then I look at the shitcoins of the world, try to turn around a
Yeah.
quick profit. So so that whole gamut of things, right?
Yeah.
And then taxations, it is 30% tax straight away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that tends to be a big mind block in people going for considering Bitcoin as a
Right.
viable investment
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, and then I guess so you take a typical. I mean, it's hard to qualify a typical Indian from the streets, right? You cannot. There is no such thing, right? But assuming somebody, I don't know, who has access to the internet, which is a lot of Indians, who has access to some additional funds in his account, which again could be a lot of Indians. These guys do spend a lot of time on, like, zero, they're doing sort of day trading, for example. They like you said, have gold. They might even be buying property or land and things like this, right? So those seem to be the typical, what I refer to as the 20th century investment vehicles. um, do they have they spent time trying to understand what Bitcoin is and how it rewires basically your brain? I mean, is that intellectual curiosity present in some of the people you've spoken with?
To the some Okay, so that qualifier makes it easy for me, because some of the
Yeah.
people I've spoken with, yes, they are Bitcoiners, right? But
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
so,
I
so
mean,
no,
I mean the non-Bitcoiners,
yeah,
yeah.
of course. No, I won't sneak out of that question. So yeah, so yes, I mean, uh, in my experience, what I'm seeing in the past 4 odd years is, and this is what we've all experienced around the world, right? That when
Mm,
Bitcoin comes is when we start getting phone calls, is when uh, uh, long lost cousins and friends start blowing up the phone saying that, hey,
yeah,
I know you're part of Bitcoin, hey, what's up, are you doing well, you know
yeah,
uh,
yeah, 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 yeah.
but,
So his
but
number go up will draw a lot of
yeah,
attention, like it
yeah.
does always. Yeah,
Right, so this phenomena that is experienced worldwide is true in India as well, right? And again, it's human behavior.
yeah,
So yeah, so intellectual curiosity, I would say. I'm sorry, it's a boring answer, but it is similar to what the intellectual curiosity we see around the world, that
Yeah.
when it pumps and the influencers that people follow, they start
Mm.
talking about it when the numbers pump, is when the interest suddenly pumps as well.
Picks up. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
And
Got it.
but are people looking at fundamentals? Are people asking questions of, okay, what is money? What are
Yeah.
the functions and properties of money? How should it function? What is inflation? Where is inflation coming from? The answer
Yeah.
to inflation, the first principles thinking of the answer to inflation cannot be that the price tag went up. Why did the
Mm.
price tag go up, right? uh,
Yeah.
the answer to inflation is not, our veggies are more expensive in the warehouses, or in the
Yeah.
mandis. You would know that term, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that isn't the answer. So how many
Yeah.
people are questioning that? Those,
Yeah.
those
And I think there's a certain I don't know, and I don't think it's particular to Indians. I mean, there's a certain breed of people who do like to take whatever the mainstream media reports as fact, right? I mean, it's almost like, hey, inflation is 9%. And my argument has always been inflation is not, and something that Michael Saylor says a lot, it's not, inflation not a single digit number. Well, first of all, it's not a single dimension number, right? If you're interested in buying a house, your inflation rate is actually the rate of increase of house prices. If I am interested in renewing my Netflix subscription, my inflation is the rate of the increase of the Netflix price. Um, Mine is a digital commodity. Yours is a physical commodity. They will appreciate at different values, or in other words, they will inflate at different values. And I think the CPI is just, you can pull out a number out of thin air and try and make it make sense, right? So
yeah.
the fact that people just don't, well, I mean, I didn't question it for a long time, until I discovered Bitcoin. Everyone's like, hey, look, it's 8%. Oh, right. Okay. Your hurdle rate is 8%. It's
See, the,
actually
the
not,
thing is,
it's a lot higher.
although, see, there is still a sliver of hope, which is people are talking of inflation more and more,
Hmm.
right? Which never used to happen pre-COVID.
Yeah.
After,
Agreed. No, that's true. That's true. And I think that's brought up the heat on some of the central banks, especially in the Western world. Inflation is rife. But I think people have more have more access to question this, right? I think, but I think even in some other countries, like and India included, it's the financial authorities make it. The rules are not the same. I mean, I know for a fact fractional reserve banking, for example, in the Indian context, doesn't work the same way as it does here. In the UK and in the US. In the US, over COVID, banks had to have 0% reserve, right? So like it's literally printed. I mean, it's not even forget it. They didn't even go through the expense of printing. It was an Excel sheet that was updated,
yeah,
and there was more liquidity in the market. But I think the Indian context is a little bit more conservative. I believe there are certain rules in place. Are you aware of any of those?
I'm not. I have not explored that. Having
Right.
understood these fundamentals, I personally have not done the homework on that aspect of things.
Okay.
So yeah, I won't be
Yeah.
able to.
No, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough because I think I mean, and the only reason I've done this is because my in-laws are visiting me recently, and my father-in-law he works in the banking space, right? So he's quite aware of all this stuff. So he was picking my brains about Bitcoin, and I was picking his brains about the fiat economy. So it just, I mean, he was astonished that Western governments can simply print money without any reserve.
Yeah, yeah.
It seemed like a crazy idea, but the reality is not so crazy. I mean, that's what is happening
Yeah,
everywhere.
absolutely. See, this conversation reminds me of a book. So, for our dear listeners over here, listeners, watchers, very quickly, apologies for my videos lighting, guys.
Nah,
I'm
don't worry about it. It's okay.
about it.
Yeah, yeah. We're
But
we're, we're not a high grade production environment. Don't worry, it's fine.
yeah.
The
So,
audio is great though, so that's good.
the book that comes to mind is a book called Lords of Easy Money by Christopher Leonard. I would recommend this book to Bitcoiners, just to see, this is an ideal book to give to your friends who are even slightly curious, based on your conversations about Bitcoin.
Yeah,
So it and it is a recent book. It is, I think it came out in relatively recent. It came out in 22 or something, 22, 23 something.
Okay.
uh, and it does talk about quantitative easing. It does take into consideration what happened during COVID, etc.
Mm.
So it's a very, very good beginner book about what's truly happening. So Lords of Easy Money by Christopher Leonard, definitely
Nice.
recommend that book. And also, okay, this is a slight tangent from the Bitcoin conversation, but yeah, Christopher Leonard also has got a fantastic book called Cokeland, Kochland, about
Yeah.
the American Coke
Robert
business.
Koch and yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yes, yes. David, if I'm not
yeah.
wrong, I think David has passed away.
I think yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So again, a thick doorstopper of a book, but for sure, worth plodding through that book as well. A very, very well
yeah.
written book. And it talks about how the Koch brothers have completely eroded, the two dominant parties in the US, with all sorts of funding and all sorts of,
Mm.
quote unquote think tanks,
Yeah,
and created, again, quote unquote, legit science to, back up their agendas. So
yeah,
both the books by Christopher Leonard, for sure, a
yeah.
recommendation to the listeners.
Yeah, and I think no, that's brilliant. That's great. Thanks a lot for those. I mean, like I've heard of one of them, but not the first one. So I think that definitely is something everyone should check out, right? And I think you touched on a very important topic there because and I think this is something that I am as a Bitcoiner, right? For me, it's not the fiat gains anymore. I don't even, and I'm not a wealthy guy. I still, have a family to feed and still survive on the fiat paycheck. But it's not so much about number go up for me anymore. For me, it's like this sort of it's the only true free market, I believe, that exists in today's world. And I also believe it's the only way where truth, unaltered truth, gets published, and can be received by anybody with an internet connection. So that is super powerful for me. I don't care if the number doesn't go up. For me, it's like, right, I want to have access to this tool, which we never ever had, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So from that aspect, and I think that it's like a cycle of it's a pyramid, right? How do you get to the top of Bitcoin understanding? I mean, you start with number go up, you eventually end with fuck the
yeah. Came
government, fuck
came
the
for the
world,
money,
fuck
stayed for the
machines.
revolution.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Nothing matters at that point. So I think, I don't know if you find it the same way, because for me, Bitcoin just rewired everything in my mind. Like the way I approach life has changed, and it's so weird when you explain that to people, saying you just bought magic internet money and your life is different. Like, how does that make sense to a normie? They will never get it. So
Yeah.
how do you bridge that gap? How do you talk to your friends about this kind of stuff? How do you express it, and do they think you've gone crazy?
Well, again, Bitcoin is a great uniter, yes, but it's also a great divider, for better or for
Yeah,
worse, right? So you have these conversations all the time with your Bitcoiner friends. You
yeah,
try to have these conversations with your non-Bitcoiner friends to varying degrees of success, right?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so, and as Bitcoiners, we go through that journey ourselves, right, where those five degrees of acceptance, uh,
Yeah.
we
Of
rebel
grief,
against
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
we try to compromise with our friends. Finally you come to the acceptance that, okay, this is how it is, and they'll come when they do, right? And
yeah,
then and then you start focusing on yourself, on your own journey. You start thinking that, okay, I understand self sovereignty. What does it mean?
mm,
Does it just mean money? Of course, no. So, okay, where all is it applicable? Okay, maybe I should eat better. Maybe I should improve my relationships. Maybe reach out to that, one person who used to reach out to me but has stopped recently, and maybe give them a phone call, say hello, speak with your
yeah,
parents a little more often, etc., 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 right? So
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
right there with you that Bitcoin makes you think. Once there is definitely a very, very spiritual element to Bitcoin.
Mm,
It is
mm,
undeniable. Once you're done with the numbers go up thing, numbers go up maybe, 4 times a year, if that, 4 days a year, if that, right?
yeah,
So yeah, once you're beyond that and you start looking at the fundamentals, uh,
yeah,
for sure, it does influence all aspects of your life. Bitcoin is a mirror. It shows you where you are, right? And it
mm,
questions you.
mm,
and it is a very gentle guide, friend, mentor to you, right? Telling that, hey, this is how things are. Do you want them this way?
Yeah,
It
yeah, absolutely.
regularly presents a crossroads to you, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think the other thing it makes, even on a very practical sense, is that it brings the whole theory of opportunity cost into reality, right?
yeah.
Because I find myself thinking, okay, I don't know, I want to buy a PlayStation, or do I want to buy more
Model,
Bitcoin? It's
model more
yeah,
stack.
it's exactly, and it's the greatest, not the greatest, but it's like the constant denominator for pretty much anything that you might put a value on. So of course it doesn't substitute family and, let's say, non-monetary assets, but for anything to do with financial assets, for me it's always been. And same thing with, when it comes to things like hurdle rate. I mean, when you talk to your Indian investor friends, I mean, what percentage, like, how do they measure their earnings? That's what I'm interested in. How do they know that they're making money? I mean, what is their measurement scale? Is it the Nifty 50? Is it inflation? What is the hurdle rate that they try to beat?
So yeah, so everyone understands inflation, right? Inflation, like it is present, it is very much
Yeah.
present in discussion. So and again, this is a good thing, right? Two years ago, 1.5 years ago, the fact that, hey, your yield should be more than 7%, because guess what, right? Uh,
Mm, mm.
that that guess what, dot dot dot, question mark, rhetoric question, was insightful, right? Not
Yeah.
anymore. Now
Yeah.
people get it,
It's obvious. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that is
Yeah.
that is something that people do get. uh the hustle is there for sure, right? So now once again, the common man, as usual, right from the time of serfdom and earlier, probably continues to be, on the mill, grinding away. So and definitely, in my ecosystem over here, I'm based in Pune. So for the listeners who wouldn't know, Pune is an important hub of IT activities, IT services in India. It trails only Bangalore and probably Mumbai in, its offerings. And please don't quote me on that.
Mm.
That's a message to the listeners. But yeah, a sizable presence of IT companies over here in India, or
Yeah.
over here in Pune, where I'm based.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, people, on one hand, people are facing inflation, people are feeling the pinch for sure, and AI is a very real threat, and it has started percolating down middle management, down to the front lines. Salaries are majorly stagnant.
Mm.
The great divide between the front line and the CXOs continues to increase.
Mm.
So these are harsh realities that have started emerging. India, what is working in India's favor is, India is a young country. People are hustlers. People are
Mm.
very, very adaptable.
Mm.
Uh, the concept of jugaad, which you would know, we are very good at. So jugaad, for the listeners, is a heuristical method of getting things done. It may not be the best way, the ideal way, but it is a way that gets something
Yeah.
done. It helps
Yeah.
you move the needle.
Yeah.
Maybe you may have to revisit what you did at a future date and time, but it relieves immediate pressure,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That is
It's
that is.
it's it's like the minimum viable product sort of thing, or service also in
Do
some
we call
cases.
it that?
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, that is how I try to explain jugaad, right? A
Yeah.
heuristical
No,
method of doing
absolutely.
something. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's unique to India, but I think what's happening now is, and I see it in Indians abroad, I see it in, citizens of other countries. It's like this this force is dragging you back, right? It's kind of like something is holding you back, and it's not your ability. In most cases it's not even your access to knowledge, your access to the internet, not your access to anything. It's like you're giving your best all the time, every day, and yet it's falling short, and
so
that
the
can be
thing is,
very
thing is you're,
demotivating,
you're
right? I
moving
mean,
against. you're sorry, I'm cutting you off. I mean,
No, no, all I was going to say is that that must be so demotivating for a lot of people. And I feel that's probably why we are no longer building like the Taj Mahal, for example, where, when they, even if you go back to the 70s and look at some of the movies that were made, I mean, they were absolutely epic in proportion. People would stake at that point of time their entire livelihood and borrow more from the market and put it into this vision and hope for the best, right? But we don't do that. It's like it's almost like a risk-taking ability. It's like we're tired. It's because something is holding us back,
so
And how do you go? How do you what do you do? How do you
I
make
have
people
an analogy.
realize it?
I have an analogy for what you say, and I agree with you. I of course agree with you, right? When you're driving against the wind. There is friction, right?
Yeah,
Let's take the example of a two wheeler. You're literally cutting wind. There is friction, right? Uh,
yeah,
when you're driving at relatively lower speeds, you're okay. But when you're driving at relatively higher speeds, the fluid dynamics start kicking in, right? That is why you
yeah,
need a windshield ahead of you. So it directs away the wind from
yeah,
hitting you and slowing you down, helping you with optimum performance. But again, you can optimize that to a certain degree, not
yeah,
beyond, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and you're right, there are elements that are beyond your control, right? Wind, you won't be able to control. You have a certain amount of power and punch, and that propels you as much as it does, right?
Mm,
Is what you mentioned, your skills,
yeah,
your stature in society, where you
yeah,
were born,
yeah,
the
yeah. Willingness as well. Your ability. Your
willingness,
you.
absolutely
Yeah.
drive as well, right? But yes, there is friction now. So that's the whole usual way of traveling that we know. But
Mm,
there's another way which utilizes wind, right? Sails utilize wind, hot
yeah,
air balloons utilize wind, right? And that is what is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin propels you. It helps you accelerate
yeah,
rather than providing friction to your acceleration and your effort. Bitcoin helps you in your effort. It helps you
yeah. It's
compound
an
your
ally,
effort
basically.
in a good
Yeah.
direction, or it helps you achieve the outcomes relatively faster, if you look at
Mm,
it that way, right? And so that you can do more with your time, and do more with your health, and more with your attention, and more with your relationships, right?
yes,
So
exactly.
Bitcoin is that great enabler. It's that great catalyst.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's really well put. I think I agree. I think it's and that's the superpower effect of Bitcoin. It's kind of like when you tap into a battery that never leaks to preserve your time and energy, and which you can then tap into again to use when you're out of your time and energy, and the energy is still solid, maintained, secured, and scarce. It's right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's an unbelievable
you
piece
you
of
just provide
engineering.
the first movement. What would
Mm,
be the first movement? The first movement would be getting some Bitcoin, some sats, some 100,000 sats, right? Whatever, to each his
yeah,
own. And 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 then see the potential energy convert to kinetic, the kinetic back to potential, the potential back to kinetic. The
yeah,
Bitcoin demands that of you, that the first step has to be yours, and then it
yeah,
starts taking care of things for you, right?
yeah.
So
Exactly, exactly. So okay, fine. We get the Bitcoin story, right? And we understand, I guess, from an Indian context, why gold is important, but also why Bitcoin might be a substitute in some portfolios, or might also be the entire portfolio for for someone like us, right? I mean, for me at least, that's definitely the case. So, what about the adoption in India? What is happening there? Are people how do they buy the coins? Where do they keep them? Do you have any insight into that kind of stuff?
uh so there are several layers of
Yeah,
answers to this question, right? So
like yeah,
one, so let me start off with the efforts being put by Bitcoiners. That's a great place to start.
yeah,
So lots of shout outs to Aaron, who's running Pleb Together Strong, to Raj and the entire fantastic team of Bitshala that has been running Vichala,
Hmm.
Adi, who's very active with Summer of Bitcoin, people who have helped us out in our journey in Bitcoin for India. So, uh, how is the outlook? The outlook is positive and growing, right?
Mm.
Uh, for sure, there is a lot of good kind of awareness about Bitcoin than there was 4 years ago, even 2 years ago, right?
Mm.
And Bitcoiners, as you would know, are a passionate bunch, right? So people continue to evangelize. People continue to people were being the crazy in the family with pride, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
be, people people wear the not invited to parties anymore badge
Yeah,
with pride.
proudly. Yeah.
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 So the work being done by plebs on the ground at various levels, be it at colleges or in or at a local politics level, is
Hmm.
fantastic. Number one, right? Another layer to that is how is it that people are getting exposure to Bitcoin? Unfortunately, see, this is one of those things, right? That something is better than nothing, right? So
Mm.
people are getting exposure via all the exchanges that are there, and the news that keeps coming out, which unfortunately focuses on the bad aspects of crypto in general, and that is that the basically the MSM narrative, right?
Yeah.
uh, and then if people happen to have Bitcoiner friends, then the discussion starts happening that, okay, this is what I'm hearing, what is your opinion? There are several meetup groups. We have a lot many WhatsApp groups. There are Telegram
Hmm.
forums. There are Discord forums, right? So one again, a heartening statistic, or rather anecdote that I can tell you is people continue to find the various forums that we have as Bitcoin for India. People are we are seeing people come in, one person requesting to join here, one person joining over there, one person signing up over there, right? So there is that it is a trickle, but it is
Mm.
consistent, right? And it
Mm.
continues to grow, and I'm noticing that people are not leaving. So for sure,
Mm.
there is a lot of value that people are finding clearly,
Mm.
because people are not leaving. That's that
Yeah. Yeah.
that is
I
what.
mean, that's the thing with Bitcoin as well, to be honest. It's very hard to get off that. I mean, I've never met anyone who spent 1,000 hours studying Bitcoin saying, yeah, that's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's good. I mean, like it's brilliant to know because I mean I do all my orange pilling every time I'm in India, right? Be it my cousins, my friends, my extended family. It's always I'm the Bitcoin guy, and rightly so I think because um the thing with Bitcoin is Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing department, right?
Yeah.
I would even say Bitcoin doesn't need a marketing department, but what we do I don't view as because I have no if you don't like Bitcoin doesn't care actually, to be honest. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't need us really. We need Bitcoin, you see, and that's the subtlety, right? Because I think a lot of big companies, stocks, portfolios, even real estate to a certain extent needs its evangelists because that's what keeps the Ponzi alive. But I think people confuse our talking about Bitcoin. And then they say, yeah, but if you buy it, that's a greater fool theory because you're going to find some other fool to buy it. You know what I mean? So that's this idea that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme and it's a pyramid scheme and it's always you selling it to someone who's willing to pay for it. But then again, my point is there is no such thing as intrinsic value. I mean, how can there be if I'm giving you something and you're willing to pay whatever to get that thing? Isn't that a market established already? I mean, do we need anyone else to do
So,
anything?
so me myself, being a sales and marketing guy, I'm happy to disagree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
See,
Okay.
because crypto is being marketed like anything, right? If anything, Bitcoin needs a lot of marketing yesterday, and
Mm.
the best part is there isn't anything to lie about Bitcoin. If you see, probably you would as well, right? What is the first thing that you would tell people to do about Bitcoin? You would tell people to study Bitcoin. You
Yeah.
would say, hey, this is a non-custodial wallet. Please download this non-custodial wallet. I'm happy to part with some of my very, very precious sats, but I'm happy to give it to you, because I value this relationship more than that amount of sats that I'm about to
Yeah,
give you. And it
yeah.
will,
Not always, but yes.
yeah, yes. So, right, S- we aren't lying, right? At
Mm,
least, if anything, we are sold on the concept, we believe in it, and it's only then that, and and even then, we tell people to be very cautious, right? We tell people
mm,
that, hey, don't play around with it. This is fire. Make sure that you know what you're doing. We are there for you. We are happy to help you, right?
mm, mm.
uh, so that is our approach when we try to market Bitcoin to, non-Bitcoiners. But the false marketing din that is there, thanks to the crypto industry, how do you counter that? And it needs to be countered.
Yeah, yeah. So my argument there would be like the reason they are marketing so heavily is because they have to
Of
find
course,
somebody to buy this shit.
of
Nobody
course,
else
yeah,
is gonna, without that they're not gonna buy it, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But about the countering part, I don't even think it needs a concerted effort to counter because over time, the free market will win out anyway. So, what happened to all the shitcoiners who bought their stuff in 2017? What happened to
yeah,
Ethereum back then? What happened to Litecoin? What happened to Cardano or any of these other, centralized projects? I mean, they all collapse against Bitcoin, as does absolutely everything else. So, yes, you can be skeptical and say, okay, I'm going to see how it plays out, right? But then you will end up getting Bitcoin at the price you deserve at the
yeah,
end of the day. And I
yeah,
think Bitcoin is a self correcting mechanism for the world. It's kind of like, okay, fine, if you don't need me, you don't need me, no problem. I'm not even
yeah,
going to say anything. But there will come a time when you will come looking for me. So I don't,
yeah,
so I think by actually marketing Bitcoin, we tend to compete with the likes of the shitcoiners, like the
yeah,
crypto industry. And it's like, we don't actually, we're completely different. I mean, we don't need to do that,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, the only part I would contest is we don't need to do that. Rest,
Mm,
everything I agree with you, right?
mm,
Uh,
mm. It's
because
kind of like saying Bitcoin is fire, yeah? Or a commodity. I mean, okay, if you want to use the commodity lens, it's like oil, right? Yes, there are oil companies, but when did you last see a marketing or an advert for oil or for fire? You don't, because it's kind of
so
like saying, why?
okay, so let me come at it from the lens of education, right?
Mm.
Uh, Education is important, whether we call it marketing, whether we call it sales.
Yeah.
In sales and marketing parlance, again, if your heart is in the right place and you want to create a win-win situation, value for value, it is more of education that, hey, here is something that you aren't aware of, and
Mm.
this would enhance your life, and this is not something which is a nice to have. This is not something, this is not me playing on your insecurities to sell you something. This is something that would save you time or save you money, or
Yeah, it's a life raft. Yeah.
yeah, it's a life raft, right?
Lifesaver. Yeah.
Right. So uh, I would look at it and I would position the marketing argument around it in from this lens, not that fundamentally I agree with you that Bitcoin doesn't need marketing. People,
Yeah.
and again, I agree with you that people would get to Bitcoin at the price that they deserve. But
Yeah.
as Bitcoiners, now that we have seen the light, again, goes back to Uncle Ben: great power, great
Yeah.
responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so we have that.
Yeah.
We have that is what I feel.
I agree. No, look, I mean, I get it. But I think there's another solution to the problem, right? Which I'm seeing in the West, which I think is a very interesting concept. And I wouldn't say I'm a believer in this model, but I'm weighing up the pros and cons of doing this, which is to move the discussion of, or even the education of Bitcoin away from the store of value, right? Move it more towards it's money. It's money that nobody can stop. It's peer to peer, and go out and how you spend your pounds or rupees or dollars, go and spend your Bitcoin and buy a burger, right? Do it that way. Now, that I think is actually giving people actual sovereignty of their own money. They can go to, use their Visa card and tap as if they are paying in fiat when actually they're paying on the Bitcoin rails. and spending sats at the same time and getting value for what they are trying to buy at the same time. So it's a way that the West is trying, or not the West, but like decentralized groups within this hemisphere are trying to do it like this. Um, which is why I was concerned about, not concerned, I was curious about adoption in India. So for example, let's say I do have a wallet and I do have 100 million sats, I wish, on it, and then I go on a Diwali shopping spree next month, right? Am I gonna? Is there anywhere I can tap my card and get something? Can I find somebody to accept my Bitcoin, or is this
Uh,
all just going to be a?
there are roundabout ways of doing it, right? So GoSats is one company, right? This is not an endorsement, but
Yeah,
so
yeah,
take it that way. But yeah, there are ways that if people want, people can accumulate Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin using the platform provided by GoSats. But apart from
yeah,
that, and yes, definitely there are pockets, right? So if you speak with Paco, the dude behind the
yeah, yeah,
Run with Bitcoin handle,
yeah,
he'll be the first person to tell you that there are so many forums out there that do accept Bitcoin, right? But
yeah.
is is that generally the part of accepted behavior? Not yet, right?
Mm,
So there are pockets, there are businesses, there are outfits, there are individuals who do accept Bitcoin, right? But it is not part of your everyday life. It is still extremely exotic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And I think that's also another key metric for adoption, right? So it's not just, I think, and somebody explained it to me, one of my previous podcast guests, and they explained it to me really simply. He runs a Bitcoin UK, similar to how you do for Bitcoin India, but his funda is all about, he talks with merchants, he gets the merchants to start having a payment terminal, and then he does things like two for Tuesday offers. You go in there, you get two burgers for the price of one if you pay in Bitcoin, right? So that's the way they're doing it. And his whole mentality is, Bitcoin is not, I mean, yes, you guys can hoard it, you can hodl it, and that's your prerogative. But at the same time, like blood flows in a body, you need to have liquidity of Bitcoin in the environment for it to function, for it to achieve its fullest sort of um,
Potential, the
to
promise.
be its, yeah, to be its best form of itself. It needs to flow in the system. So, and I'm like, yeah, but there's nothing I'm going to trade my Bitcoin for. There's absolutely
Yeah.
nothing that I'm going to spend on it. You know, there isn't. But then he's like, yeah, but if every Bitcoiner did that,
Yeah.
you're not going to get the adoption. So you can't have it both ways, right? So either you're going to increase adoption, which will increase the fiat value of your Bitcoin, or you just use it as a store of value, but then don't go after the likes of BlackRock or Sailor or any of these institutions who are hoovering up the supply, right? They're not the bad guys then, because you're basically doing that on an individual level, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
See, again, this would be a spectrum, right? No clear answers for sure. To each his own, for sure. That is. See, again, Bitcoin is a layer above human incentive,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And
yeah,
we
agree.
we we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
So this the philosophy that you just explained, that is yours, right?
Mm,
Not necessary that people would agree or disagree, or to what extent they would agree or disagree. My personal take of it is somewhere smack in the middle. Again, sorry for a boring answer, right?
yeah.
I'm happy to part with some of my sats for some of the people that I care about, right? But do why would I want to go and purchase a burger with my Bitcoin if I can purchase it with my fiat? I would
Yes.
rather spend time. Okay, I would rather help help a fresher maybe
Mm,
who
mm,
is wanting to understand Bitcoin, who is interested in Bitcoin, and give them some sats, right?
mm,
Because I know there is some proof of work over there.
yes.
Absolutely important, right? Someone who is running a burger joint and they have been told that okay, this is the offer that we have to give, and someone goes and pays in Bitcoin. Is that really proof of work from their side and their
Mm,
part to earn my Bitcoin, right?
yeah.
I
Yeah,
would.
yeah, no, absolutely agree, right? I agree with your proof of work analogy because I think that's correct. And I've said this on other podcasts too, but basically, like proof of work in Bitcoin isn't restricted to the mining. It's also restricted to it's the table stakes for having an opinion about Bitcoin. You need to spend 10,000 hours of proof of work actually reading about the bloody thing, right? Or studying it. And
Yeah,
then you have the right to actually so unlike so it's not just hey I have the right to write anything I want in the ledger for the next 10 minutes.
yeah,
It's also for me to talk to you about Bitcoin. I need to have spent all this time about Bitcoin. So when mainstream media publishes an article saying Bitcoin is bad for the environment or Bitcoin is used in drug trafficking because the dollar apparently is not,
we
right?
know they haven't put in the work.
Exactly.
Either,
So they don't have any
so
right.
either allow me to qualify that. Either they've not put in the work, or they want to spread fun.
Yeah.
I
But
don't think.
in either way, they still would have to have expended that energy to be able to make that entry into the Bitcoin mainstream media ledger, right? But they haven't. They're doing it by fiat. This is my point. Because they can. Because they can, they will. Not because they've actually understood it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
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 So
See, this is where I am about outfits understanding or not understanding Bitcoin, right? I think people get it. I think governments get it. I
yeah.
think I think mainstream media gets it. I think people are being fudded nevertheless.
Mm. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
A
But
lot
I
of
don't think this
a
is I
lot
don't
of
think
a
this
lot of outfits.
mm.
Sorry, I mean,
No, no, that's okay. I was just gonna say I don't think it's pure incompetence from these guys. Because
no,
they're
no, no,
smart
no,
guys
it is
even in the
not
fiat world.
incompetence at all. I don't think it is incompetence. If
Yeah.
if all these outfits could generally be right about fiat ecosystems, right?
Mm.
Because they do have their reputations at stake. If you look at all these media outlets that talk about the stock market, the kind of analysis they give you about vague stocks and
Yeah.
and generally how those stocks end up performing, they have generally been right. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been in business. Period.
True. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
they know how to put in effort. They know in which direction to put effort.
Mm.
If
Mm.
someone is still fudding Bitcoin, there are more powerful outfits at play.
Yeah. And I think also their incentives are aligned
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. See,
because
you can wake up someone who's asleep. You cannot wake someone up who's feigning being asleep.
yeah, exactly. That's well put. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of these outfits, I mean, they don't want to talk themselves out of their access to the money printer, their closeness
Yeah,
to the money. That's the
yeah,
reason why they have
and
to
when
fund this.
and when the printer goes burr, all that cheap money that tends to stay at the top. It doesn't trickle down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not designed to trickle down. I mean,
It
it's
is. It's
designed
not
to
designed to
almost
trickle. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and it's like and yet Bitcoin is the Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, of course.
It's
Yeah.
it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me. But
So,
anyway,
by the narrative of they don't get it, if anything,
yeah,
they get it exactly.
yeah, no,
Does
it's brilliant.
does
I
the effort to fund?
yeah, yeah,
Why is it
exactly.
that
And
ETH doesn't get fudded so much, or Solana doesn't get fudded, or dog coins don't get fudded as much as Bitcoin, right?
exactly. I think no, that's brilliant. I mean, I think that's a very good uh, take. To be honest, I'm in complete agreement with you. I used to give them the benefit of the doubt. I used to be like, hey, these guys just don't get it. But now I'm like, you know what? They completely get it, and
They
this is a weaponized attack on Bitcoin.
if El Salvador can get it and if Bhutan can get it,
Mm,
there is no way in any scenario that the powers that be don't get it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's see. Hopefully, I mean, again, I think it's inevitable. I think it's a question of time. Like I said, they will countries that don't get it today or institutions that don't get it today will get it at the price that they deserve, and
And to
so
your
be it.
point, I agree with your point 100% that Bitcoin needs to flow. If it
Yeah,
doesn't flow like water, it will stagnate, and
yeah,
it'll continue to the problems that we have with fiat would continue to exist in a hyper bitcoinized world. Yeah, it may become hyper bitcoinized, yes. uh, Currencies may all fall into the dollar may end up falling into bitcoin, but who has bitcoin then? And then
Mm.
what do we do? We come up with paper money on top of bitcoin, and then what do we do? Fractional
Yeah.
reserve banking on bitcoin.
Again. Exactly. I mean, and that's why I'm amazed when Sailor starts mentioning things like, "Oh, but you can get yield on your Bitcoin," and I'm like, "Oh my God, my red flags are all going up." That's
Fluttering wildly, yeah.
exactly because that's not at all what I would have I expected him to say. But anyway, but I think the other reason why I think the circular economy of Bitcoin has a say is because it fights two battles. One, it basically nullifies the government's ability to print money because they can live in their own bubble for as long as they want. Now, I don't have to. I
Yeah,
don't have to. I mean, yes,
yeah,
okay, I don't want to have the most expensive burger of all time, right? By selling my sats. But I rather do that if my other choice was, hey, let's pay it in a CBDC so that everyone knows everything about me. That's
yeah,
I would rather do it that way. So I think
yeah,
that's a speculative attack on the actual government's sovereignty of its counterfeiting operation. And I think that's one way why I actually think that's maybe a good thing because if you and I transact in Bitcoin, we're okay. We're okay as a world actually. All Bitcoiners are fine because you'll produce the goods and services that I need, and you will accept my payment through your phone or a wallet or even cold storage. You're sorted, right? Like that. So by just allowing the big ETFs or big banks or whoever to hoard the Bitcoin, I think then we're going to, that's more likely to lead to this fiatization of Bitcoin
yeah,
in the
yeah,
long
yeah.
run.
I see that as a very real threat.
Yeah. Mm,
I,
mm,
I see I see that as a much bigger threat to Bitcoin than maybe something technical.
mm.
Technical, we've, and I'm not a technical person, right? So
Yep.
my understanding is if there are two people running the Bitcoin core, we are good to go, right? And if those
Yeah.
two people agree that this is what this is what is Bitcoin, and those people talk to two other people, and those two other people agree that this is what is Bitcoin, we are still fine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, there is a technical angle to this, which is slightly concerning to me, which is the whole centralization of mining pools, right? So that's a whole new I mean that's a whole podcast episode in itself, to be honest, because it talks about some of the incentives for me as a pleb miner are not any more viable compared to 10 years ago, right? So the ethos of Bitcoin is slightly being centralized more so from the mining perspective. But I think from the top level down, like you said, that is probably the bigger threat, not the technical stuff, because we'll have smart guys who will fix that problem anyway.
yeah,
It's this government or big institutions hoarding something that they are publishing on the other side saying is bullshit.
yeah.
you know,
So
that's
mining is one aspect. See, this is what uh, I find this definitely worries me a little, that we talk about. See, there is so much of discussion and content being created and put out talking
yeah,
about how currencies are getting inflated away, and the purchasing power of various currencies, it continues to reduce against bitcoin.
yeah,
There is all sorts of charts and data and statistics and anecdotes about that aspect of things. There is the prophecy that all currencies would fall into the dollar, and then the dollar would fall into bitcoin. Have you noticed how eerily silent it is after that?
mm,
Fine, everything falls into Bitcoin. But who has the maximum amount of Bitcoin today? It is the
mm,
US.
yes, yeah,
Whose global currency are we using today? It is the US.
yeah,
How does anything change then?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it changes because, well, again, it depends on how much of the supply they actually have, right? And I
And
think,
flowing. See, how
yeah,
much of it is flowing?
yeah,
The
absolutely. No, exactly, exactly. So the other thing, of course, is if you, again, I mean, another book recommendation would be the Jekyll Island one. I can't remember the full title, You know,
creature at
the
Jekyll.
creature of Jekyll Island, exactly, exactly. Where the, this whole concept of basically let's get everyone to put their gold into this centralized bank, and then let's start issuing money and let nobody
That
stop
that
us.
will be on our lands.
Yeah, it
You
will
know,
be. It
a
would be.
centralized location, and the location is ours.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the Federal Reserve is actually not even federal, nor is it a reserve. So it's a
Yeah.
complete, it's not even an oxymoron. It's actually just a moron.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor
Yeah. Exactly. No, exactly. That's a great analogy. So
yeah,
I think we will
definitely
um
not holy.
yeah, definitely not. I think we are going to reach this stage possibly within our lifetimes, I'm thinking, where you have governments showing their stack essentially publicly and saying this is how much we have, and we're going to back whatever the pound with this, okay? Possibly. Whether they'll amass enough to actually make a dent in the supply, that depends on you and me as hodlers, I feel. At the end of the day, if I want to trade my Bitcoin for a bigger fiat value, I may be actually giving away my sovereignty in the long run. That's the opportunity cost of that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but
And
are
what
we? Yeah,
matters to that cost, right? Maybe the health of a loved one, maybe your own health, maybe you fulfilling your parents' dream, or your spouse's dream, or your child's dream,
yeah,
or maybe your own, wherein you say, hey, this is a passion project of mine, and
yeah.
I'm willing to stake something which is as important to me as my time and attention, if not more, right?
Mm,
Considering the generational aspect of Bitcoin,
yeah,
at that time, Bitcoin coming into play makes sense. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think so too. I think we will again come to a crossroads like this. I think every Bitcoiner will at some point saying, right, what do I value more? And yeah, and that
And that's a
decision
good
is
place
going to
to
be.
be. That's a great place to be, right? Because that is so unlike the fiat mindset that we have today, which is all about hoarding, and which is all about being on the rat race. Uh, for once, I mean, if we are not in the rat race, we know that we are financially secure. We would start looking at other things. We would start
Yeah.
looking at passion projects. We would start looking at, okay, I have enough. How can I contribute?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs sort of thing, right? I
Yes.
mean, when you eventually end up at self-actualization, right? But what's going to happen in the Bitcoin hierarchy of needs is that during this, our resolve is not going to be tested. I mean, I think our resolve will be tested even more when Bitcoin is $1 billion than when it was 1 cent. You know what I mean? Because that's such a hard thing to say no to.
Yeah.
If I throw you a lifetime of lavish riches for you and your entire generations to come
Yeah.
in exchange for something that you have.
So see, Peter McCormack, Parker
Yeah,
Lewis, these people talk about getting off the bus, right?
yeah,
If that is where they get off, as long as they get off the bus, putting the Bitcoin back into the ecosystem, back into the world, that is fine, right? You exchanged
mm,
it for something that you perceived as more valuable, and that is perfectly all right.
yeah,
Absolutely agrees with the self sovereign aspect, ethos of Bitcoin. That
yeah,
okay, I value this feather more than 3 Bitcoin because
yeah,
I do,
yeah,
and that
because you do. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So I think it will flow back possibly. I mean, I hope it'll flow back. For
as
me,
long
I
as
think,
people are not losing their Bitcoin and their keys, that is perfectly all right. People,
I mean,
we only live once. It's okay to spend your hard earned money on random shit just
yeah,
because I want to, and that
yeah,
is
yeah,
a good enough reason. As long as the
exactly.
Bitcoin comes back.
Exactly. I mean, the only time I will be hoping for a boating accident is when I have to file the tax returns on my Bitcoin.
Yeah,
That's the one time when I can conveniently forget that. Oh my God, I forgot my password. What are you gonna do?
yeah, yeah,
So, so yeah. I mean, look, we're not gonna get into taxation and all that hairy stuff. But what we'll do is we'll finish up with a quick. I know it's just been an hour, so I'll finish up with a quick rapid fire round, right? Again, nothing, no crazy questions, but whatever comes to your mind, feel free to say it.
Oh
So
boy.
five questions, okay?
Mhm.
Uh, First one, describe Bitcoin in one word.
Hope.
Nice. I like it. I like it. What chance, okay? What non-zero chance is it that Bitcoin is actually a psyop run by the elites?
Run by the
Run by the elites. So, the top.
75%.
Wow. Really? So you think this is like, look at this shiny thing while
Respect,
we.
guy. You can't ask me follow-up questions on that question. Move on.
That's true. That's true. That's no,
No, I
that's
have
a very.
opinions, my friend. We definitely, that's worth another pod. I do have opinions, but answering your question,
Yeah.
75% is where I am.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. How often do you check Bitcoin price?
When it is stable as it is now, relatively less.
Hmm.
When there are signs of the God candle every 5 minutes. uh, and when it is tanking again every 5 minutes, considering when to purchase and how to purchase and
Hmm.
which chair is
Which can I sell? Yeah.
to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Which of my kids ran out like the most?
yeah. Which of my kids I love more?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Exactly. Um, will there ever be harder money?
Not sure. I'm not knowledgeable enough. And
Yeah.
yeah, again, so sorry for the boring answer, but yeah.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. No problem. And then the last one, it's almost well, it is a $1 trillion question. Who do you think Satoshi is or was? We're all Satoshi. Yeah, yeah. So you're not concerned, obviously. Yeah. You don't expect him to make an appearance 20 years later, suddenly out of nowhere.
I see. I wouldn't discount it. See, we are all humans, right? We even if we know that we matter, if there is if there is a way for us to know that we matter a little more, we tend to
Mm.
take the chance. Number one, see,
Yeah.
and there is a lot of precedent to this. I'm forgetting the pseudonym that someone had used. See, there is a all the President's Men, if I'm not wrong. This is an American film about the
Yeah.
Nixon tape, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
True.
and if I'm not wrong, it was an FBI guy who tipped off the journalists, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it was Deep Throat or something. Operation Deep
Deep
Throat.
Throat. Yeah, not the
Yeah.
operation. The dude went by
The
the
actual person. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
this guy. He came out, I think, what, 30 odd years or 50 odd years after the incident.
Mm.
So never say never.
Yeah.
Uh, but see, okay, if I find out that Elon Musk is Satoshi, big whoop, how does it affect my life? Yeah,
No.
it doesn't. Or if
No.
Narendra Modi is Satoshi, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, that
Yeah.
that would be okay. I stand corrected. That would be something, but but I
Yeah.
don't think so. But yeah, at a personal level, I'm slightly, or okay, I'm significantly more interested to see when Satoshi's pot of gold stirs, and for
Yeah.
what, you know.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't. I mean, my take on it is, I think it's humanly impossible to have that much of a resolve to look at 1 million bitcoins worth, I don't know, a trillion or whatever it is worth today,
yeah,
and to not even try and get a sat out of it. So I
yeah,
I, I think for all intents, either he's lost the password or he's burned the password or he doesn't exist. I mean, he's no longer alive, or maybe it's not just one person, right? So whatever. Anyway, let's see. Apparently, there's a new HBO documentary
I
coming
would
out.
be curious to, like, really curious to. Uh, is there a backdoor to Bitcoin?
Yeah, yeah. I I mean, I don't think so. Is the answer. I mean, that's a short
So
answer.
again,
I don't think
this
so.
this is, you know, the non-technical uh, highlight of mine, right?
Yeah,
There is no way
yeah,
for me to know. Uh, I cannot verify the code, and even if
yeah,
the code is being verified by fantastic cypherpunks, you don't know what you don't, right?
yeah.
So
No, agreed, agreed. And I think, look, I mean, again, okay, we put a non-zero chance to that, but it'll be a low number, I think, for a backdoor. But I think the front door is what I'm more worried about. Like I think some of the stuff that we spoke about, around the centralization, around the FUD, around the
I,
governments, the
I
elites. I think that's a challenge. So look, Abhilash, it's been a whirlwind conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know we touched on a lot of different topics, and there's so much more that we can keep
we
talking
are
about.
barely scratching the surface.
I know. So hopefully this piques some interest within the Indian audience for sure. Um, and more than happy to have you back again for a next one for a more deep dive. I think the elites stuff that you mentioned, I'm really curious about your logic there. So let's try and pencil that for the future.
I would leave you and the listeners with this book called The Brothers by Stephen Kinzer, and it's the CIA's origin story,
Mm,
right?
okay.
And you end up, it's just sad, and it
Mm,
is all all for what, all for not, literally.
right.
It is a few people's egos. It is like literally you can count those people on your on your 10 fingers, uh, for their egos, for their prejudices, that the world suffers. It's just sad. So
Yeah.
when you ask me, is there a non-zero chance? Heck yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Definitely, I'm going to add that to the book list. And
So the Brothers by Stephen Kinzer. This is about it's a dual biography of John Foster Dulles and Alan Dulles, the people who made CIA what it is. So
wow. Okay. Nice. A little bit of light reading for the weekend.
yeah, yes, only
Awesome, Abhilash. Look,
100 pages.
um, yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you
So
so much. Thank you so much.
yeah, and we'll touch base soon. Cheers.
Looking
Thank
forward.
you.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.